3 and Y. So you don't have to wait for the robo-taxi or Cybercab to for Tesla to release autonomy. We're currently expecting to exceed human safety levels in Q2 next year, and then substantially go beyond that thereafter. And so really it's just a software update to the cars to be able to launch our self-driving network. So we expect to do unsupervised full self-driving and start that in California and Texas, around the middle of next year. And then, we have 7 million cars on the road. We'll have 9.5 million cars by the end of next year. So, and eventually we'll have a fleet of 100 million plus vehicles, and they'll all be autonomous. The Cybercab with no steering wheel or pedals, we're expecting to reach volume production in 2026. So that's certainly interesting. But like I said, the actual launch of a robotic taxi, unsupervised full self-driving, is actually next year. And at the event, the Tesla autonomy event, we had 50 cars, 30 Model Ys that were driverless, and 20 of the Cybercabs. And so autonomy is here, is what I'm saying. And yeah, and all cars will drive themselves. This is a no-brainer. And they'll get to where they're 10 times safer than human-driven cars, which will save, perhaps 1 million lives a year globally. And then Optimus starts limited production next year, 2025, and then should be in volume production in 26. And then we'll grow to, I think, ultimately be the biggest product of any kind ever. So, and I kind of agree with Ark Invest and Kathy Wood that autonomy, like the sort of robotic taxis, makes Tesla kind of like about a $5 trillion company. The Optimus robot, I think, makes Tesla a $25 trillion company. It's not even clear what money means in the future.
We end up in a post-capitalist society at some point. Elon, you make
we do sort of end up. It does become kind of post-capitalist. And like I said, and I know you agree with this, that we're, and looking at the most likely bright side, we're headed for an age of abundance where anyone can have any goods and services they want. It won't be a case of universal basic income. It'll be a case of universal high income is the most likely outcome.
You make it look easy, my friend. Thank you for making some time available. I know it isn't easy. Let's give it up for Elon Musk, everybody.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, my friend. All right. A glimpse into the future across multiple industries. It's a pleasure, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to share with you an initiative that came out of FII. It's called the AI Inclusive Initiative, and it's the first important step and endeavor in uplifting the emerging markets through the power of artificial intelligence. The key objectives of this initiative, the AI Inclusive, will support the development of safe and responsible AI ecosystems within the Global South. So how is FII going to achieve this? Number one, by identifying AI startups that provide positive solutions and concrete impact on humanity. Second, by securing initially investments of $100,000 each from at least 50 private sector stakeholders to back these startups. Third, by working with knowledge partners to make sure local talent is equipped with the skills needed to thrive in the AI landscape. Fourth, by collaborating with tech companies to offer training and scalability and fostering innovation and growth. And finally, but not least, FI Institute will advocate for governments to provide tax benefits to investors creating AI-friendly conditions for them. So the impact here, the goal is to help initiate a safe and responsible AI ecosystem within emerging markets. This offer is initial support for AI startups to empower them to drive positive change. Today, the FI has a call to action for all of you to join us in this important AI empowerment journey. This is an opportunity for many of us to support this movement, whether it is through financial contributions, capacity building, or provision of tech solutions. AI has the ability to create a brighter and more inclusive future for all. All right, that is our AI initiative. And now it's a pleasure to welcome to the stage our panel, our Board of Change Makers AI. If I could please have our panelists come out. Okay. Joe. Ben. Thank you. Eric. See you. Jack. Travis. All right, I have the very unenviable task of doing this in 40 minutes when each of you deserve 2 hours on your own. I'm going to take notes from the conversation this morning and go for each of you, and wish me luck, please. Travis, I'm going to start with you. Founder of Uber, CEO of Cloud Kitchens. We talk about AI a lot and all about the super fancy, big, billion-person transformations. How is AI going to change business right now and transform and expand and change profitability of businesses? You're doing some amazing things with Cloud Kitchen and AI, please.
Those are two different questions. If you just do, when I look generally at what's going on right now, it feels like we're entering an era of bigger is better. That if you are a large company with a strong business model, that the technology that's coming is actually going to give you competitive advantage over folks that are smaller. Like the accretion of value is going to the bigger players. And there are probably a lot of very simple things that can be done to create more profit and bigger moat on those business models, is my guess. So there's just like blocking and tackling, like workflows, customer support, onboarding, sales, all getting automated will make an already strong business model like supercharged. And I think for the biggest companies create trillions of dollars of value. I mean, we're doing, my company's doing the future of food. It's real estate, software, and robotics for food. And there's lots of fun, practical things that are happening. I mean, they're going to be big, but they're also practical. We have a machine that makes food. Like imagine if you were to go to Chipotle, that front line of people that is making your bowl. We have a machine that does that. So we have restaurants that are operating with no people or one person just overseeing the machine. But if there's only one person in that room, we now have that person talking to the machine about how the machine is doing.
As if they were an employee.
So yes. So then this is simple stuff, but this is where we're going now. Like we have this up and running in restaurants today, where you're asking the robot, hey, is the food warm? Am I running out? This kind of thing. But we just said, well, might as well just give it a personality. So now you can ask, like, did the Dodgers beat the Yankees today? Which they did. And you can have a conversation. And it's sort of, we're quickly getting into that interstellar moment where you're just interacting in a very human way.
I've got to ask this other question just for fun. If you'd remained CEO of Uber, or were still CEO, what would you have done differently? What would Uber be doing now
Oh, man. We could take the whole hour on this one. I'll keep that one short. Maybe I'll give you a couple things. Look, we had probably one of the preeminent AI labs when I left Uber. And we saw the seminal paper out of Google, the attention paper. I mean, you guys know how I rolled when I was doing Uber. Like, we'd probably be doing some pretty interesting stuff on that front. I mean, sort of in a more practical, on the more practical side, like, we were starting to roll out, I mean, of course, we're doing the autonomy thing. I'll put that aside. I think Elon's going to take care of that at this point. But we were starting to roll out we looked at transportation as a high-frequency trading business where we would buy trips from drivers and sell it to riders. We were a market maker. And so we were starting to set up quant teams for each city to do the high-frequency trading of the trips so that we could get the lowest cost reliable ride more efficient, gain market share, get more profits, all of this. It was just kind of a fun, geeky finance thing. But.
One in 30 seconds. You've disrupted two huge markets. Your one piece of advice for someone here who wants to go disrupt a marketplace today, what's your piece of advice for them?
Look, over time I've tried to distill what it means to innovate at speed and at scale into sort of principles or pillars. They basically are cultural values at my company, and so we've distilled it down to truth, trust, and passion. And again, those are high-level sort of ideas, but doing those really well, each of those really well, is sort of how you innovate at speed and at scale. And it's, there's a lot in there, but like think of the childlike playfulness and curiosity with a teenage rebelliousness with an old man's wisdom.
That's a beautiful mindset setup. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Travis. Jack Hittery, my dear friend, one of our trustees, CEO of Sandbox AQ. You have your chairman sitting right next to you.
No pressure.
No pressure whatever. So first of all, please explain AQ, but then what are large quantitative models and what role do you envision they'll play in the current evolution of AI?
Well, Peter, first of all, I'm very happy to see that we still have humans on the panel instead of just AIs.
For the moment.
So I think it's just another few...
I mixed the AI in this panel, yes.
Okay. Another few FIIs, it's just going to be avatars up here. The mantra of AI or die is real. Is real. It's not just a phrase. It's happening right now. It's happening on several levels. And certainly companies and countries that do not engage will die. But now the question is, okay, let's say we all agree on that. Which AI? What kind of AI? What mix of AI? And the marketplace now is starting to offer more than just one slice of AI. And that's what's exciting. So we have, of course, large language models. Many people in this room and on this panel are involved in that and making huge strides. And we're seeing AI now take on reasoning, and I'm sure Eric and others will also address that. But there's a whole nother side of AI that has had less focus, and that's quantitative AI. That's AI that's based on equations and data, quantitative data, numerical data. When we think about starting a biopharma industry in a country that never had a biopharma industry, that was really not even possible 5 or 10 years ago. But now we can come to a country like KSA or other countries and say, hey, let's get that going. But it's not large language models that will win the day there. It's models that have been trained on biology, physics, chemistry, electrons, that kind of interaction. So large quantitative models, LQMs, as complementary to LLMs, allow us to do that at scale and speed. And we do that on the same GPUs, we have NVIDIA here on the panel, that LLMs use, but we tweak them in a very, very different way. We train it on a very, very different kind of data. The data doesn't come from the internet. The data does not come from downloading Wikipedia and Reddit and social media. Instead, we generate the data from the actual equations that govern our world. And this is now a whole new superpower for humans that we just never had before as a species. Until 3 years ago, it was not possible to calculate
data to train these. So how should leaders think about the proprietary data generation they have and retention as AI models become more commoditized?
Well, Peter, we all talked about Gen AI. Gen AI is a very real and big thing. But now let's talk about Gen data, generative data. How do you generate data? Well, when you want big data sets that govern our world of either quantitative finance to look at portfolio optimization, or again, a new material to build a car that would be lightweight, make the car lighter weight so it's more fuel efficient, we can't turn to the internet for that data. That is not where we're going to get it. Instead, we generate the data from these equations. Those become interesting.
Heisenberg, Schrödinger.
Yeah, exactly. That's where quantum comes in. When people hear the word quantum, I know people get scared, sorry, but quantum is not just about quantum computers. It's about today on GPUs from Alphabet, TPU from Alphabet, GPU from NVIDIA, and others. There's many others coming out. We're able to run the quantum equations, that is the equations that actually govern our world, at scale on these GPUs and TPUs. This is new. These chips, by the way, were never designed to do this in the first place.
Amazing.
And it's the human ingenuity that is quite fascinating that came up with this.
You know, you did an incredible job spinning Sandbox AQ. A is for AI, Q is for quantum, just for you to remember that, out of X at Google. And you have real products today. Can you just very quickly give us a sense of what Sandbox's products are that you're
Sure, I'll give some actual real case studies. Here at FII, we have, I think, Paul Hudson, the CEO of Sanofi, one of the largest pharma companies in the world, and our two companies actually are announcing just today, we were just on CNBC earlier, announcing that we're working together to apply this AQ, apply this LQM, this quantitative AI, to accelerating biomarker development, that is development of diagnostics that will help all of us, and drugs as well. So that's a real world case study of how we're using it there. We're also working with companies like Dow and others on the chemical side to say, how do we get new catalysts that could bring us new materials? When we think about the hydrocarbon space, think about the output of a refinery. And we say, okay, the high octane fuels, very profitable, jet fuels, kerosene, profitable, naphtha. But how about the bottom of the stack, Peter? That bottom of the stack, petroleum companies don't make much money on. It's sold to smelters and others and burned in the air. And so when we think about what we can do with AI that understands chemistry, we can now take the bottom of the refinery stack, up-value it to things like carbon composites. Carbon composites are what make a McLaren car so powerful and yet so light, Aston Martin, Ferrari, and others. But it's not accessible technology to all cars. By working with the hydrocarbon producers, we can say, how do we now make this kind of technology available on a democratized basis? So these are real world impacts, be it in biopharma, in chemicals, in fuel, in energy. And Elon was talking about energy and energy storage. The battery technology we have today, Peter, is 45 years old.
Amazing.
And we need to leapfrog that. And this kind of AI, complementing LLMs, this is where it's going to come from.
Let's go to your chairman next.
Can we thank Ruth for spinning Sandbox out?
Thank you, Ruth.
Good job, Ruth.
And what a financial success so far.
Absolutely.
It's been amazing. I've never seen a company
Very
scale
excited to see
revenues
the
as
upside.
quickly as you have. It's
Thank you.
extraordinary. Dr. Eric Schmidt, former CEO and chairman of Google and Alphabet. There's nobody on the planet that I think holds your stature in this field. Thank you for all that you've done. The path to AGI. We talk about AGI, it's this blurry line of what is AGI. So do you have a definition for it? And why is it so exciting? Why is, Sam saying, I'll spend $50 billion, whatever it will take? Talk about that, please.
It's worth understanding what will happen in the next 5 years.
Please.
And the work that these guys highlighted and others on the panel will highlight are going to generate savants, that is, specialized assistants that will work with you in whatever you do. An artist savant, a music savant, a physics savant, and so forth. Those savants will work with you to do research, drug discovery, solve problems, can do many, many things. Why 5 years? Because today we have all the components necessary. We have planning, we have the ability to do forward and backward reasoning, we can do stepwise reasoning, we can go against objective functions that are much more complicated than they used to before, and we can generate arbitrary code. In the industry, it is believed that somewhere around 5 years, no one knows exactly, the systems will begin to be able to write their own code. That is, they literally will take their code and make it better. And of course, that's recursive. I thought that is essentially a change in slope. If you're going like this, all of a sudden it goes like that. It's reasonable to expect that within 6 to 8 years from now, so 2030, right after that, maybe 2032, under current growth rate, it will be possible to have a single system that is 80 or 90% of the ability of the expert in every field. So 90% of a physicist, 90% of the best physicists, 90% of the best chemists, 90% of the best artists. When you have such a thing, you have a non-human that is effectively smarter than any human, because no human can dominate all of those fields. Maybe Leonardo da Vinci could, but certainly not now. We don't know what happens when such a thing exists, but we know that that race is really important. There are many, many things that this thing, we don't know what to call it except an AGI, could do. For example, it could analyze cyber threats and develop new ones, or it could protect against them. It could come up with new biological solutions, good ones or bad ones. So there's both a national security component and a worry, but also a notion of a huge step change in human efficiency and productivity. I will assert that we as humans are not ready for the arrival of this. Yeah. We're just not ready for it.
Yeah, I can imagine all future Nobel Prizes in math, physics, chemistry, medicine coming from AI systems.
Yeah, and I should say, by the way, that if you go to Formula One, you enjoy watching the humans drive around the track. Yeah. Now, it's obvious that automated cars, Waymo cars and so forth, could drive faster, but we wouldn't find that an interesting sport. Yeah. So here we are in the land of golf. Maybe there will be a robotic golfer that will beat all the live top golfers, but we won't look at the robot, we'll look at the humans. So we poor humans will take pity on ourselves.
We're very biased, aren't we?
Right. That will be how we choose to entertain ourselves.
Very briefly, but this takes an hour worth of conversation. What do you consider the most dangerous outcome around AGI or artificial superintelligence?
There's a huge issue around proliferation. And right now, we don't fully understand the rate of proliferation of the mid-tier models and open source models. There's a consensus at the moment that models that cost less than $100 million to train are probably not that dangerous, and ones that cost more than $100 million are more dangerous. I have no idea why we believe that, but that's the number. So what will happen is, at some point, there will be proliferation of inexpensive tools that can do significant damage. The most obvious one is in biology.
Yeah. Thank you.
Something you know a lot about.
And I do think that we're going to see extension of the human health span because of AI.
We live longer, but it'll be more dangerous in some situations.
Hopefully we can moderate that. Ruth, a pleasure. Ruth is the president and CIO of Alphabet and Google. You met her this morning. Ruth, I want to quote this and then ask you about it. We've all witnessed companies making grand AI for good pronouncements, for sure. But when push comes to shove and financial performance dictates decision-making, often less lofty ideals are what shareholders demand. So how do you think, I think the world of Google. I think Google has transformed the world in extraordinary ways. How do you think of AI for good versus AI for financial gain in the position you're in Google as a company?
I think of it as a false choice because the upside from AI is absolutely extraordinary. But if we don't invest to protect on the downside, we'll never have the opportunity to actually invest to capture the upside. And that upside-downside point is two sides of the same coin. So when you think about the upside, it's around accelerating science. It's around social issues, solving things in education, healthcare, as we've been talking about. It's the economic upside. But if there's not a responsible foundation, if we're not doing the heavy work, we don't have a right to have a seat at that table. And that means engaging with regulators constructively. It means investing in our systems internally so that you're protecting from the downside. If you don't protect on the downside, you're going to find resistance, whether it's from the regulatory world or from everybody else. And so they go hand in hand. And to assume that you can pursue one without the guardrails that are critical, I don't think is long-term sustainable. And so we view them as two interlinked approaches to really maximizing the upside of this extraordinary technology.
You know, you've managed through a multitude of ups and downs in the economy, including the 2008 financial crisis. What's important for business leaders here to know about leading their teams through the incredible changes we're about to see? And do you think people realize how much change we're about to see in business and industries and society over the next 5 years?
I think the most important point to take away from all these conversations is that the art of the possible is fundamentally changed. This is a generational opportunity like we haven't seen before. And I spoke about some of the key proof points in the earlier discussion this morning. Probably one really important one is in life science. I'm so proud of our colleagues who won the Nobel Prize for this with AlphaFold, credited with being the most important contribution to drug discovery. Relevant to your question, Demis Hassabis, the founder of DeepMind, the one who went on this journey to create AlphaFold, when he embarked on it, he said, many people said, how is this possible? And his answer was, why not? And so we kept going. And I think the other really important point when you think about this, that I talked about some of the language translation work we're doing. We now translate in 260 languages. The important point is that we added 110 languages in the last 6 months alone. 500 million people on the planet. So it's a vertical lift. What that says is you better not delay. You better move right away. It's already been said on this panel. I 100% agree. And the economic upside is profound. So I would say the two most important, there are many important messages, but one of them is the time is now. You have to reimagine what is possible, because it really is. And we're seeing it already today. We're seeing it in the manufacturing sector. We're seeing it in education. We're seeing it in so many different areas. In fact, very importantly, on this point about language translation, I was recently with the Minister of Digital Transformation, a country in West Africa, who said more than 50% of their population is under the age of 19. They knew that the most important thing they could do, and we've already heard comments about education today, the most important thing to do is education. How can you have a country with more than 50% under the age of 19 and not solve that? But they didn't have the teachers to do so. And what's exciting with AI is they can now actually provide education, quality education to their entire population. And very importantly, in many countries, as in this one, in many of our countries, multiple languages are spoken. And before AI Translate, you had to learn French or English in order to get the math books. Now you can learn it in your language. And so to me, when you think about the impact on humanity, it is incredibly inspiring. My dad always said when I was growing up, education is your passport for freedom. It is your passport for life. This is transformative. So one, get on the program right away. And the second really important point is what Demis said, which is, why not? You have to radically reimagine what is possible, how you interact with customers, every element of process, risk management, the way to solve healthcare issues, education issues, climate change issues. But the time is now.
It's incredible. And it's near infinite opportunity, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Every industry will be transformed.
Reimagine the impossible. Reimagine the possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Ben Horowitz, co-founder and general partner of A16Z. Man, oh man, you guys have been on fire in the AI universe. So I'd love to hear your thinking as a leading thought investor. Where's the value going to accrue in this incredible value chain from chips and power and real estate and large models and applications? Are they all equally important to invest in?
Yeah, so I think as people have been saying, it's such a gigantic market. It's the biggest market we've ever seen, that there's going to be kind of money to be made everywhere. I think the issues and challenges are different at the different layers. So if you look at the kind of hardware infrastructure side, chips and data centers and power, there's no question in 10 years we're going to need more of all that. Like there's no doubt at all. But the thing about that is, okay, how does that progress and how do you finance it? So if you look back to the internet, which you recall, we had the biggest bandwidth shortage in the world in 1999 and the biggest bandwidth glut ever in 2001.
Akamai was charging whatever they wanted to back then.
Yeah, it was the most bananas thing. And how could you possibly have too much bandwidth in 2001? It didn't make sense, right, if you look back historically. But what happened is the bottleneck moved. So the bottleneck was bandwidth in 1999, but then it became, how fast could the server spit out the bits? Did we have load balancers that were good enough? These kinds of things. And then we didn't need the bandwidth because we were stuck in other places. And already we've seen kind of the price of NVIDIA chips this year drop in half. And you go, whoa, how is that happening? Well, we have this data bottleneck that's kind of becoming a sort of serious thing. And then we're going to have a power bottleneck, clearly, and other kinds of things. And then we'll have a cooling bottleneck. And so if you're financed with NVIDIA profits, then you're probably good. But if you're financing a data center with a lot of debt, you could lose it. You could get upside down very fast. So you have to really be thoughtful about that. Then if you go to the next layer, the kind of foundation models, what we call the state-of-the-art models, Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, Llama. That's 80% of the software market. Everybody has to use it for infrastructure, so every application, everything calls on it. I'll bet Travis has it as part of his infrastructure, there's no question. So that's just a big and very fast-growing market. But it's really interesting in that the price of a token has fallen 100-fold in the last 2 years.
The most powerful technology in the world is almost free.
Yes, it's almost free. Like the prices are dropping like crazy, but revenue's still increasing. So the size of the market is huge, and the price competition is really intense, like much more intense than you would see in this complex of technology at this stage normally. And then we're we're asymptoting in certain places. So if you look at the growth of GPT-2 to GPT 3.5 versus the growth, in terms of intelligence of 3.5 to 4, 2 to 3.5 is much larger, even though we spent way more money going 3.5 to 4. That's because we're hitting a bottle. It's not the end of it. It's not going to asymptote forever, but it does imply that there's going to be an architectural change. And so even though the revenue is so huge in this market, there could be new players that emerge. We could be search before Google when we had 37 search engines, and none of them were Google. And we can't even remember who any of them were now, because they don't matter. So that's the kind of trickiness there. And then in the application layer, Travis hit on a really interesting thing, which is big companies can optimize very fast with AI. And so as a new company, you have to ask the question, in a new application, can I get to market faster than the big company can get a good product? And we made an investment in a dev tool company, which is like the slowest growing stuff ever because you're selling to engineers, and engineers hate buying stuff because they can build it, of course. And this thing has grown from 0 to 40 million in revenue in 3 months. Now, 3 years would have broken the world record for a frickin' dev tool. But so they're going to take the whole market before anybody can build anything as good as they have. And so that's certainly possible. And then the other thing that's been
I'm going to ask you to wrap up on that.
Oh, yes, sorry. I had too much to say.
Ben and I want to hear it, believe me.
Yeah, sorry.
But thank you. Shou, as CEO of TikTok, it's a pleasure to have you here. How is TikTok utilizing AI to contribute to the creative economy? I think, and what's the positive impact for the global economy as part of that?
So our recommendation algorithm has always been based on machine learning. So it's something we've embraced for a number of years. But what I think has been unlocked, by mainly OpenAI in the last couple of years is this better understanding that, the opportunities are actually much bigger and coming faster than we thought possible. For us, a lot of it is translating this amazing technology. First of all, we need to understand it. And understanding it I think, involves with myself. I mean, I find it hard to catch up. There's so much going on. I think a lot of it is using it myself. I read a lot of reports. X number of things can be done, Y number of things can be done. But when I use it myself, I just download the products or sign up for it and use it myself. I get a better understanding of exactly what is possible at this moment in time. For things that goes on in many other parts of the business that we are exploring what is possible and not at this moment in time.
We talked about AI safety. A lot of kids are using TikTok. My family's using TikTok. How do you think about making sure that you've got measures in place for the responsible use of AI?
Yes, it's very important, particularly, well, I guess in the US, there's an election cycle, going on at this moment in time. It's a particularly important problem for us to get on top of. So I think the first thing is your policies. The guidelines of what you allow on your platform needs to be very explicit. So today, if you do anything deceptive using AI, impersonation or anything dangerous, it violates the guidelines and we take it down. The second is we provide a series of tools for people to automatically label. So if you produce something that's done by AI, that's produced by AI, we will ask you to label that. And if you don't label that, we will take measures, to make sure that you don't get the reach that you want.
Do you use AI to do that, I assume?
The third thing is to use AI to better for content moderation. And there are many opportunities for this. Initially, I didn't really understand it. It was a very fuzzy concept. Large language models can do better content moderation, but how? With better understanding, there really is a very significant path for a lot of this new technology to help content moderation be better. So using technology to help protect against.
It's interesting to what Eric said earlier. If TikTok was populated by videos only created by AI, it'd be a lot less interesting. It's the fact that humans are doing it with the support of AI that makes it fascinating.
It is currently true, and I tend to agree with Eric on many, many things, because he's a lot smarter than I am. We are seeing some, for example, OpenAI has been posting Sora videos on our platform. I've been following them. Some of them are becoming really interesting.
Yeah.
And you can see a path where at some point, one of them could go viral. And one of them could be so interesting that people feel like it engages them. It is possible.
Thank you. Jay Puri, EVP worldwide of NVIDIA. NVIDIA has become synonymous with the AI revolution that we're living in. Thank God for those early video game players, huh? How should companies and countries think about AI to drive growth and prosperity? We have a number of countries and leaders represented here, and what do you advise them to do right now? Because it's going to be fundamental to their existence, to their future economies. You agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, AI is basically about creating intelligence. So how can something about creating intelligence not be fundamental to the economy? And and the other thing, of course, is the pace at which AI is advancing is frankly just unbelievable. There's just no expletives that you can use to describe that. I mean, just 2 years ago, we had...
I call it all new stock price highs.
What's that?
Exponential growth in NVIDIA stock.
Exponential growth, right?
Yes.
So only 2 years ago, we had ChatGPT and generative AI, and we were very impressed with the fact that you could get next token prediction and it would answer. And now today, as everybody is talking, the AIs are becoming very sophisticated and able to reason and reflect. And in fact, they don't just do one-shot reasoning. They can reason a lot and solve very complex problems. It's the Agentic AI. And then the way you interface with them is not necessarily a chatbot, but you can have human avatars. So, we are going to have to learn how to live with digital humans as teammates, if you will. And then, going forward, we are moving into things like physical AI, where, of course, Elon talked about robots and humanoid robots, but all kinds of robots, even factories and warehouses and everything will be robots that will be built into the digital world. And they will all obey the laws of physics and so on. You will not be able to tell the difference between the digital and the physical, and you will use AI to optimize everything in the digital world, and then you will implement it in the physical world, and then it's kind of the AI flywheel, because whatever you do in the physical world then provides data to improve what happens in the digital world and so on. So what I'm saying is, with this type of what's going on, what is it, to your point, what is the condition that you have to create for you to be successful in using AI, whether you're a company or you're a country? And the condition is, of course, AI is about taking the information that is embedded in the data that is there, right? That's where the intelligence is embedded, and AI allows you to discover that using these sophisticated models and everything I'm talking about. So to be able to do that, what everybody needs to do right away is to build the instrument to allow you to do that. And that is what we call the AI factory, okay? An AI factory is custom built to take raw data, process it into generative models and so on, and then allows you to produce these monetizable tokens at scale, right? And so these factories, once you build them, can change everything. But they're not easy to build. As Elon was saying, it's extremely difficult to build these AI factories. And I think one of the things that we at NVIDIA have been doing, of course, we have been involved with every one of these factories that has been built. So we have tried to make it as simple and straightforward as one can make them by taking all the learnings that we've had, codify them into reference architectures and so forth, and see how quickly and replicate these factories, right? And
let me ask you a closing question here. The GPUs that NVIDIA has been producing, there are many companies chasing you, no one at the scale. How long do we see the GPU as the dominant architecture in AI, do you imagine? Is it the rest of this decade?
Well, I think one of the things that people miss is NVIDIA is not just about the GPU. We are about an accelerated computing platform.
So what does accelerated computing mean to you?
Okay, so what accelerated computing is not about just, it is, we need to, general purpose computing, which is what we relied on for a long time, sort of was using Moore's law, and it kept advancing, say, twice as fast, say every year or so. But that type of advancement in computing, even if that was to go on, and Moore's law is not happening anymore, in 10 years, you'd only be able to advance computing by 100 times. To do AI, we have advanced computing for a particular domain by using GPUs by 1,000,000 times. That's the reason why deep learning is possible and the types of models that we are doing. And to do that, you have to innovate across the whole stack, not just at the GPU, but all the software, refactoring it, parallelizing it, looking at the unit of computing as not a server, but a data center, and so forth. So, that's what we are It's not about a particular chip. It's about an accelerated computing platform that you can be true to, which is based on CUDA, and people can continue to innovate in AI, whether they're building models or they're doing inferencing or whatever, and they can be sure that there is backwards and forward compatibility. And it's very much more than about a chip. And so I think that's what we're focused on, and that's what we hope to continue doing for the long term.
Ladies and gentlemen, 6 minutes per person is nowhere near enough. Thank you all for your patience and for your wisdom. Grateful. Let's give it up for our panel here.
Well done. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter, for this great session. And thank you for this great conversation with Elon. So, thank you all for being here with us today. It was a long day, but I hope a very productive day. Tomorrow, we're expecting also great conversations. We'll start at 8:45 a.m. because it will be, again, a long day. We'll hear from great people, including His Excellency, Minister of Finance of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Excellency Mohammed Al-Jadaan. We'll have many series talking about supply chain, talking about many other industries. And we will hear also from the Prime Minister of Vietnam, and many more conversation, conclaves. And please, I know many of you were here today, and you spent almost the whole day in this room, but I will encourage you also to discover the dome, to discover the pavilion. You have a lot of other great sessions there. And enjoy your evening. We don't want to keep you too busy. And we hope that you will be back with us tomorrow morning. Great session starting quite early, but very interesting. Have a great evening. Thank you.